Good morning, this is Madeline.
And Sonara.
And this is the Society News for Friday the 18th of January. On Tuesday the 22nd of January, Laura will be at the Our Place community drop-in session at the West Wight Community Centre in Mower Place, Freshwater. Come along to say hello between 10 o'clock and 11:30 and enjoy a free cup of tea or coffee. The swimming group are at the waterside pool in Ryde. The pool is closed to the public whilst the group swims. There are male and female volunteers to help you get in and out of the water, as well as lifeguards to ensure your safety. To join the swimming group, please call the site for Wight first to notify us of your swimming ability. You need to register with the office at Millbrook House first to be able to swim with the group.
Wednesday, 23rd of January. The weekly coffee morning will be held at Millbrook House this week from 10:30 a.m. There will also be our low vision drop-in between 10 a.m. and 12 noon, a weekly event to allow you to view and try the low vision equipment that we have at the Society without the need for an appointment. The Wednesday social group will be meeting at 2 p.m. in Millbrook House. The entertainment this week will be music by the band Scram. The group lasts approximately 45 minutes, which is then followed by tea or coffee and cake. If you're not already a member of the Wednesday social group and would like to attend, then please call Laura Jasper on 522 205 to register your interest.
On Thursday the 24th of January, the Thursday social group are meeting at Millbrook House. The group meets from 10:30 a.m. until 2 p.m. You can knit or just have a chat, and then later in the afternoon volunteers come in and read to the group from different topics.
And on Friday the 25th of January, the Striders will be meeting then for a Brook to Halverstone stride. The walk is approximately 4 miles long and will take about 2¼ hours. The minibus will be leaving Millbrook House at 10:15 a.m. Lunch will be at the Sun in Halverstone at approximately 1 p.m. Please contact the Society if you would like to join the Striders group.
Site for Wight activities. We will be holding a chair yoga taster session on Tuesday the 19th of February, which is a less strenuous alternative to the yoga session we held last year. The session will be at Millbrook House and will cost £6. The closing date to register your interest for this session is Friday the 25th of January. To register your interest for these activities, please call Laura Jasper on 52205 or email members@iwsb.org.uk. Laura will be on Vectis Radio on Tuesday the 22nd of January talking about the Society and what activities are coming up in the coming weeks for members. Tune in between 2:30 and 3:30 on FM 104.6 or listen online.
This week's In Touch. Is Helen Keller a 20th century icon? Icons is an epic new history series for BBC Two, profiling great people from seven different fields of human endeavour. It asks you to vote for your favourites and ultimately decide who was the greatest person of the 20th century. Icons, Activists is on BBC Two, Monday 21st of June at 9 p.m. If you want to find out how to vote for Helen Keller or any of the other nominees featured in the series, then go to www.bbc.co.uk/icons where you can also find terms and a privacy notice. Extant Theatre, a company of visually impaired performers and directors, is about to start a new tour with Flight Paths. The cast are Emilia Cavallo and Sarah Hubolt, actors and circus performers who perform part of the show on aerial silks. The show will be made accessible through creative audio description and new sound technology called spatialized tracking. The shows run from 5th of February to 5th of March. Peter Wight talks to two of the performers. The presenter is Peter Wight, the producer Lee Kumutat.
And we're moving on to the county press for Friday the 18th of January. First, the headlines. There are two headlines: Ugly Face of Youth Soccer and White Knight Aims to Clean Up the Island. Ugly Face of Youth Soccer. Hampshire football chiefs have been informed after punches were allegedly thrown by a visiting player and parents during a county cup tie at St George's Park, Newport. The incident kicked off during Sunday's fourth round Hampshire Cup match, when a player from Paulsgrove Youth was sent off. Newport eventually won the game on penalties. The teenage player was initially spoken to by the referee for a tackle, but was sent off when he hurled abusive language at him, the county press has been told. Witnesses said the player stormed off the pitch and threw a traffic cone towards the Newport spectators. Stuart Sullivan, assistant manager of home team Newport Under-16, said, "After a few jeers from the spectators, the player then went into the stand, closely followed by Paulsgrove supporters, and all hell broke out, with their player and parents swinging punches at our spectators. I am nearly 50. I have been playing football since I was 9, and I have never seen anything like this. The referee rushed over and was then assaulted. Scenes like these should never have to be witnessed at a football match." Among our supporters in the stands were young children who were in tears. Tiles were also smashed off the walls of the away dressing room and a door damaged. A spokesperson for Paulsgrove Youth FC said the club was looking into the incident and would deal with it accordingly. Paulsgrove, who are the top of the Portsmouth Premier Division, have won all their league games in the past 2 years. Mr. Sullivan said, "We knew it was going to be a close game, but no one could imagine what was going to happen." It was in the 58th minute the game was stopped for 15 minutes, following the ugly scenes in the stands. Mr. Sullivan said, "After everything had calmed down, we were advised by the referee that if the game was abandoned, then the likely outcome would have to be a replay. Having just witnessed what we did, a replay was the last thing we wanted. So we decided to play on, but on the basis, if anything happened again, we would take our players from the field of play." After a 15-minute stoppage, the game resumed, though our supporters and players felt very intimidated. Football is about enjoyment. You should not have to play in fear of what might happen from the sidelines. Mr. Sullivan added, "A great result for Newport, but unfortunately this was marred by the ugly scenes witnessed during the second half. I would like to commend the 3 officials, the referee and the 2 linesmen, on how they dealt with these very unpleasant scenes, something I'm sure they never have had to deal with before. I'm sure Hampshire FA will be receiving a lengthy report from the referee." A spokesperson for Hampshire FA said, "We are aware of an incident that took place between Newport Under-16s and Paulsgrove Youth FC Under-16s. We are unable to make any further comment at this time."
Wight Knight aims to clean up island. Meet the Wight Knight, the island's very own superhero. Our Wight Knight, in black and blue armour, is a real-life superhero aiming to patrol island neighbourhoods and minimise trouble on the streets. The Newport man, who wishes to remain anonymous, said, "I'm just on the lookout for anything I can report and will try and de-escalate problems I come across. I'll be doing public outreach at the pop-up soup kitchen, Aspire Ride and the Salvation Army, and will be organising litter picks and assisting people in need." Alongside patrols, which he aims to complete in the major Isle of Wight towns, the Wight Knight searches social media for inappropriate or illegal material. The ex-security doorman said, "I've managed to take down 2 child pornography sites on Instagram by reporting them. I also found a page Isle of Wight young people were using to arrange fights. It's like a fight club that rotates round the island. Now their organisation page has been taken down." The Wight Knight, who is in his 20s to 30s, said he got the idea for his superhero when he saw pictures from the recent island con. He said it seemed awesome to do that every day. He found the RLSH, a real-life superhero alliance, popular in the USA, London and Liverpool, and his dream became reality. His costume is based on motorcycle armour and helmets, and he says he has a bullet and stab-proof vest for when he's out on patrol. The black and blue armoured costume even made some young girls stop throwing stones while he was on a Ventnor patrol, because they thought he was a ninja. The Wight Knight's young daughter is part of his inspiration for the role. "I don't want her growing up in a community with trouble like we've been experiencing lately," he said. "I want to inspire people to help and look out for each other in the community." You can contact the Wight Knight at thewightKnight@hotmail.com and follow his adventures on the Instagram page at the Wight Knight on IOW, or on Facebook at Wight Knight Isle of Wight Rish.
Appeal for witnesses after dog attacks swans. An appeal has been launched to trace the owner of a dog that attacked 2 swans. The incident happened on the River Yar footpath near the causeway at about 3:30 p.m. on Saturday, January the 5th. Appealing for information on its Facebook page, Freshwater Parish Council said the owner stood and watched as her dog, a Springer Spaniel, leapt towards the water and attacked the birds. One female swan was seized by its neck and wing, although it escaped serious injury. Following the incident, one witness fetched Jenny and Roger Crates, who live nearby and look out for the swans. Jenny said it wasn't until the police were called the woman called her dog back. "I was so upset I just roared at her." She said it was a gun dog and that's what they do, but it should have been under control and on a lead. The woman has been described as a middle-aged with a medium build and bobbed light-coloured hair. Freshwater Parish Council has asked people to keep their dog on a lead around the swans.
Group mentality, the problem in town. Steps have been taken to prevent young people from climbing onto a roof next to McDonald's after a slate was thrown at a passing car. Carisbrook mother Claire Brown and her 2-year-old daughter Emily were left shaken after the slate hit their windscreen last Sunday evening. It had been thrown by youths who had climbed onto the roof via a fire escape ladder in Scarrett's Lane. Police have launched a crackdown on antisocial behaviour and stepped up patrols in the town, following a spate of incidents involving young people. A number of young people were arrested last weekend, including 4 12-year-old boys arrested on suspicion of throwing the roof slate. Although the fire escape cannot be blocked or removed, police and fire safety officers have inspected it to see if a gate can be fitted. Newport Safer Neighbourhoods PC Olivia Peachy said at Monday's meeting of Newport and Carisbrooke Parish Council that police were keen to find a solution. The ladder leads to the roof of the betting shop. We are looking at perhaps gating it, but we can't block it. We have seen issues in the town centre with juveniles. There is a core group of approximately 8 individuals, but they have a lot of hangers-on. Some are drinking, and there are a lot of girls, which is more unusual. There is that group mentality they play up to, they think is funny. Many are not from Newport, but we suffer from the fact that we have the bus station and McDonald's, and that's where they congregate. We do take details and contact their parents to say they're in a group causing antisocial behaviour, and they can be referred to the youth offending team. Councillor John Hobart suggested that the police should encourage young troublemakers to join the Duke of Edinburgh scheme, and said many young people were doing good stuff. PC Peacher replied, "Yes, we do get waylaid, thinking they're all terrible and running wild, and it is bad at the moment, but there are a lot of kids who aren't offending. They're just dragged into the group. Hopefully, with a bit of intervention, we'll see progress, and the situation has improved already. There are peaks and troughs."
Yarmouth as Saint-Tropez? I never said I'd do that. The businessman who plans to take over the George Hotel in Yarmouth has rubbished newspaper claims he wants to turn the town into Saint-Tropez. Howard Spooner is due to sign a 3-year lease with an option to buy from current owner Dame Diane Thompson on Monday. Speaking exclusively to the county press while on holiday in Mauritius, he said, "I don't want Yarmouth residents thinking I'm coming across to party. I'm not at all. I'm simply continuing the trajectory which Dame Diane has already set. I am a family man and I want the hotel to be family orientated. There will be a treatment room which will include a hot tub, sauna and spa. These are facilities that people who are coming over for a nice relaxing weekend can enjoy." The article in the Daily Telegraph made it look like I was Hugh Hefner coming over to party. These are just ideas at the moment. I never said anything about Saint-Tropez. With staycations on the rise, bad flying experiences and Brexit looming, why waste time and money going abroad when there is treasure on the doorstep in the form of the Isle of Wight? That's what I want to achieve in Yarmouth. There are also rumours about a sports bar, but that is not the case. I want to utilise the Isla's restaurant area to make it a lounge with a television so adults and children can enjoy it in comfort, that's all. Entrepreneur Mr. Spooner was a partner with Guy Pelly, a childhood friend of Princes William and Harry, and had nightclubs in Chelsea, Fulham, Clapham and Hammersmith. He also had a club in Verbier, a popular ski resort in Switzerland, when the royals visited.
Protesters call for eco-action now. Islanders on an eco-campaign took to the streets of Newport on Saturday as part of Extinction Rebellion, a national group. Its aim is to encourage a citizens' uprising as we are facing an unprecedented global emergency. A driver was criticised for driving into protesters on Coppins Bridge after a video posted on Twitter was shared and condemned on social media. Replies included calls for the driver to be reported to the police. The Isle of Wight Green Party described the turnout as amazing on Facebook. They posted, "Petitions, letters and voting during elections is important, but with only 12 years to save the planet, we need to treat it as the climate emergency it is."
MP applies pressure over venture keys. A government agency has been instructed to outline plans to revitalise a failed regeneration project in East Cowes. Following pressure from Island's MP, the county press can exclusively reveal. Homes England, which owns the site, will now have to deliver a proposal which could include an Isle of Wight council takeover this month. Bob Seeley has demanded this speedy action from the government following the collapse of the Venture Keys project. As previously reported by the county press, Hong Kong-based Victoria Quay Estate Limited axed its plans to transform the East Cowes waterfront with a 400-berth marina, plush townhouses, a hotel, bars and manicured public gardens back in November 2018. It is understood the company was due to invest more than £4 million in the new look Victoria Quay project. Communities Minister James Brokenshaw told Mr Seeley the agency will come up with plans that secure the long-term growth and prosperity of the site and safeguard shipbuilding. Mr Brokenshaw told Mr Seeley, "It's imperative that we provide certainty over the site's future. We need to safeguard the vital jobs within the shipbuilding industry which are affected, and to enable further work on plans for long-term growth and prosperity." Mr Brokenshaw has instructed Homes England to consider the options available, including the disposal of the site to the Isle of Wight Council on acceptable terms, and to present a proposal by the end of January. Mr Seeley is backing the option for council ownership and has asked the government to support this as the best possibility. The council acquiring the land would drive regeneration in East Cowes and the island more generally, according to Mr Seeley. He said, "I continue to push to make sure this site is secured for the good of the island and for the island's vital shipbuilding industry. I am glad government is listening to me and understands the importance of the site to shipbuilding on the island." Mr Seeley added he was very pleased the Minister for Communities agreed that the matter needed to be concluded with all possible haste. "We need to move quickly to give certainty to the industry and secure jobs and investment in East Cowes," he said. "We also need to start work on a long-term plan for this critical site." Mr Seeley now plans to press Homes England for their options regarding Venture Keys and said he will make the case strongly that the Isle of Wight Council needs to be given this site on acceptable terms.
Youth workers to tackle rise in violence. 2 youth workers will be funded by Newport and Carisbrooke Parish Council in an attempt to combat a recent spike in antisocial behaviour. The Parish Council has allocated £800 for the extra support after officers from Newport's neighbourhood policing team arrested more than 9 youths last weekend. In conjunction with Newport Youth Cafe, 2 workers will be on duty for 1 night a week in the town centre for a period of around 10 weeks. The Youth Cafe was previously located in the centre of town and catered for around 45 youngsters, but since moving to Pan, the organisation has seen its attendance drop to around 15 youths. Councillor Julie Jones-Evans said, "These aren't youth volunteers, they are proper youth workers. This is not a new issue. What's new is the escalation of violence." Councillor Jones Evans also suggested that members of the public might look into becoming volunteer police officers or special constables. She added, "The police have suffered from the cuts just as much as the council have." She said she recently met an architect to see if the alcoves near the library at Church Lytton could be transformed into less fostering areas for crime and antisocial behaviour.
Care in the Garden's £70,000 lottery cash will help it grow. A community nursery that provides training and work placements for people with learning disabilities has been awarded a £70,000 lottery grant. Care in the Garden, a community interest company based at Palmer's Brook Community Nursery, Wootton, has been awarded the cash by the National Lottery. John Goodenough, who has a background in social care and founded the nursery 6 years ago with his partner, horticulturalist Jill Smith, said, "We started the company to bring about much needed social change and have worked to dispel some of the misconceptions held in the wider community and by employers. Those with learning difficulties cannot learn, which is simply not true. Our team at Care in the Garden has built a reputation for producing quality plants and beautiful handcrafted garden furniture and accessories. The grant will be used to promote the Work Buddy scheme to other Isle of Wight employers to offer supported learners more employment opportunities."
Drink driver banned. A drink driver who crashed into traffic lights in Northwood has been banned from driving. David Stathers, 61 of Newport Road, Northwood, crashed into the central reservation of the Pelican Crossing in Newport Road near the Horseshoe Inn. Police were alerted to the crash on December the 21st and carried out a roadside breath test on Stathers, who was just short of 3 times over the drink drive limit. Vivian Ducey, prosecuting, said in Isle of Wight Magistrates Court. Stathers admitted drink driving and was sentenced to a 12-month community order with 20 days rehabilitation, a £50 fine and a 25-month driving ban. He was also ordered to pay a £50 surcharge and £85 court costs. Representing Stathers, Barbara Arnett said his client was ashamed of what happened. He lives near to where his car was and went to get clothes out of the car and inexplicably drove.
Mother's thank you to fantastic baby unit. A mother whose 3 children were treated in the island's neonatal intensive care unit, the NICU, has said thank you with a £556 donation. Louise Rippon founded a children's entertainment company, Mini People Events Isle of Wight, and held a series of events over the last 6 months, including first aid courses and discos. She has donated a birthday party package to the daughter of a family who lost their Gurnard home in a fire, set up a free water stand at the county show during the summer heatwave, and provided raffle prizes to island schools. Between 10 and 100% of the profits from the company's ticketed events and pop-up shops have now been donated to the NICU at St Mary's Hospital. The cash has been used to buy a tumble dryer, muslins and bedding for the unit, which was recently downgraded, meaning women have to travel to the mainland for care. Louise, 36, her husband Tom, 35, from Cowes, visited the NICU with their children Ivy, 4, and twins Poppy and Primrose, 2, to hand over a cheque. All 3 were NICU babies. Donna Stimson, who received the cheque, was present at the girls' christening and our wedding last year. Testimony to the bond built with her during the outstanding support she gave our family, said Louise. The NICU team has a fantastic reputation, and deservedly so. It is vital to the island. With so many services being moved to the mainland hospitals, we need to ensure the NICU remains island-based. When parents have a baby in special care, it can be traumatic and exhausting. To move this service to the mainland would add the stress of travelling and the financial burden of crossing the Solent to an already difficult time.
£4 million scheme to tackle pollution. A laser-guided tunnelling machine has been dropped under Shanklin streets on a mission to make bathing water cleaner at the beach. Shanklin Beach should benefit from the Southern Waters improvements that are part of a £4 million investment to stem pollution in the island's seas. Last Thursday, before it was plunged below the tarmac, the tunnel boring machine was renamed Martha, after tunnel workers complained its former name, Arthur, broke tradition. A Southern Water spokesman explained, tunnel boring machines are traditionally given women's names, in a similar tradition to naming ships, aircraft, and other machinery that can be a danger to human life. The machine will soon be burrowing at 7 metres per day beneath St Boniface Cliff Road and the wider area to construct a giant underground tank to storm water. The massive tank, which will be able to hold up to 750,000 litres, or 1,319,815 pints, will help to improve the quality of water in the bay. Chris O'Grady, Southern Water's Senior Project Manager for the Bathing Water Enhancement Programme, said, "We've been working very closely with the Council to help protect and enhance the bathing water quality in the region. We know work like this can be disruptive, and we'd like to say a really big thank you to everyone for their patience and understanding. The beaches and bathing waters are the lifeblood of this community, and we're delighted to be playing our part in helping to improve them. During heavy rain, the sewer system can be overwhelmed, and water companies are permitted by the Environment Agency to discharge the highly diluted mixture of wastewater and rain out to sea in order to protect homes and businesses. The new tank will cut such storm discharges by as much as a third."
Inspirational course place for Isle of Wight Labour's Colleen. An Island Labour Party officer has won a place on a leadership programme founded in memory of the murdered MP Jo Cox. Established to honour her spirit and qualities, the first Jo Cox Women in Leadership programme will take place this year, training women to become future leaders and building a network of women ready to stand as MPs, councillors, mayors and police and crime commissioners. Island Labour Campaigns Officer and Ride Mother of 3, Colleen Brannan, who has won a place on the programme, said, "I joined the Labour Party to say thank you for giving me hope and a reason to vote again. I didn't intend to become so active, but after witnessing the suffering inflicted on my community by government policy, I felt compelled to act. I was recently honoured to represent the local party as a delegate to Labour's South East Regional Conference and came back utterly inspired. I have an increased thirst to do more, learn more, share more and be better. My hope is attending the Jo Cox programme will enable me to play a greater and more effective role in helping the island return more Labour councillors and ultimately a Labour MP." Isle of Wight Labour Chair Julian Critchley said, "As campaigns officer, Colleen has been a tremendous success, organising many very successful events, including the party's contribution to the UK Pride event held on the island last year. Her energy is boundless. Her commitment to the cause is unchallengeable.
Partnership ridding Island of potholes. The Isle of Wight has one of the lowest number of potholes in the UK, with one appearing on the road every 0.31 kilometres. Statistics from the Insurance Emporium show from 2016 the number of potholes on the island has steadily dropped from 6,236 to 5,104 in 2017 to 2,888, that's in 2018 to date. The island is ranked 51 out of 208 local authorities for the lowest number of potholes. Data also shows that council spending on potholes has decreased by 93% from £761,000 in 2015 to 16 to £55,000 in 2018 to 19. In 2013, a partnership was established between the Isle of Wight Council and Island Roads to improve the highway network. Since then, Island Roads said more than 82% of main roads had been improved. Island Roads Service Director Steve Ashman said, "Island Roads, and I'm sure road users, welcome this latest clear evidence that the Highways Improvement Programme is delivering a major upgrade to the highways network. The task of transforming the network from one of the worst in the country to one of the best is a major undertaking, and there is still much work to be done." Mr. Ashman said the company would be announcing another major programme of resurfacing this year, with a particular focus on residential streets. Cabinet Member for Transport and Infrastructure, Councillor Ian Ward, said, "It's great news that, as intended, the government grant of £477 million is bringing significant and tangible improvement to the road network. The key is that by having a comprehensive road resurfacing programme, we are not just fixing potholes in a short-term manner, we are bringing about a long-term improvement that will see the network not only upgraded, but maintained at that enhanced level for years to come."
Tribute paid to Shanklin legend. The island's cricketing community are mourning the loss of Shanklin Cricket Club legend Dave Porter, who died suddenly while on holiday. Dave's long association with cricket began as a teenager playing for Westover. After he played a match against Shanklin, the West Hill Club skipper Bill Jenkins persuaded him to join the club. Dave remained a club member for over 50 years. During that time, he became the club's leading run scorer, amassing over 30,000 runs. Regarded as one of the club's finest players, Dave also played for and captained the Isle of Wight representative team. For many years, he also ran the club's Colts section and served it as captain, chairman and committee member. After he retired from playing cricket, Dave spent years supporting his stepson, David Griffiths, to progress through the Hampshire Academy and England under-19 team, and in watching him play for Hampshire and Kent. In recent years, Dave returned to the club, supporting them in the Hampshire League by driving the minibus and umpiring. Shanklin coach Guy de Belder said, "The committee, players and members of Shanklin Cricket Club are heartbroken. Dave will be sorely missed. Our thoughts are with his wife Libby and family."
And that's all we have time for. So it's goodbye from Sinara.
And it's goodbye from Madeline.
Good morning, I'm Stephen.
And I'm Pauline.
And we'll be reading the letters and features pages of the County Press for you this week. Starting with a letter from Peter Mitchell of Ventnor, headlined, "Who is this we?" How kind of Jane Boskill of Binstead, the County Press letters of the 17th of the 1st, to express our dislike of refugees. One wonders what she understands by the term. Is it Joseph and Mary seeking refuge from the excesses of a Middle Eastern despot? Or maybe my own Huguenot ancestors escaping the St Bartholomew's massacre? Possibly she's thinking of the kinder transport, or the children camping around Calais, Middle Eastern children who have seen things no child should witness. Before she tells the world we don't want them, perhaps you could clarify of whom she writes.
And this letter is headed, "What is Brexit plan?" It's from Chris Morris Perry of Ryde. I am concerned at the impact a no-deal Brexit will have on the island in the immediate aftermath of March the 29th, in particular if the Port of Portsmouth becomes a quasi-lorry park. As I see it, priority will be given to cross-channel traffic rather than the island. We know how susceptible our island is to transport problems. As a remoter part of the UK, I am concerned we will be particularly badly hit. To this end, I've emailed our MP and leader of the Isle of Wight Council asking what representations to government are being made and for details of any preparations that are being made, but to date have received no response. I believe Brexit preparation is a legitimate subject for further investigation and would urge the CP to follow it up.
Now a letter from Stephen Cockett of Ventnor, headlined "Climate Change." On Saturday I joined almost 200 islanders in a march through Newport to highlight the need for urgent action on climate change. Despite a wealth of evidence, our environment is undergoing a slow-motion collapse. Governments have, for the most part, carried on with business as usual. This political inertia isn't surprising when we consider climate change most immediately affects poorer people in far-off lands and the government's focus on the more immediate needs of the economy. It is, however, an unacceptable situation for a large swathe of the population who care deeply about the natural world and think beyond these shores and beyond the next election cycle. Assuming that you don't own an oil rig or a power station, there is very clearly no downside to improving the environment in ways that can simultaneously combat climate change. Improving the environment means warm housing, locally produced food, vibrant, accessible high streets and decent public transport. I don't see any controversy there. What we should not be doing is putting ourselves in a position where future generations have to clear up our mess because it is deemed too expensive for us. To that end, we shouldn't refrain from a protest because it might be a tad impolite to briefly inconvenience someone. Instead, we should remind ourselves nature belongs to no one, society belongs to us all, and our children trust us with the future. Given the gravity of the situation, we have a right and a responsibility to effect change in ways that extend beyond the ballot box and onto the street, to alert our decision makers to the strength of our convictions.
And this is a letter from Sally Ann Rudge of Calbourne. The heading is Aircraft Trails. Being confined to a wheelchair, I spend a lot of time looking up. Over the years, I've come to realise that airplane trails are different. I see the passenger jets flying over and their trails disappear very quickly. But there are other trails that stay for a long time in the sky. I started to investigate, and normal airplane trails are harmless trails, but these others I've learnt are called chemtrails. So what are these chemtrails? They are chemicals being sprayed from the aircraft, some of which are barium, boron and aluminium. These chemicals have been found in rainwater collected in New Zealand. Barium should not be in rainwater at all. Another toxin found in high levels where chemtrailing is occurring is in Australian rainwater, and it is arsenic. It is not only happening there, but all over the world. Why would they be contaminating our world with these chemicals? Is it for weather manipulation? Is this the real reason for climate change? Maybe we need to send a sample of our rainwater to be tested after these chemtrails have been sprayed over our island. What have other readers to say about this?
And now a letter from R. Kelly of Lake, headlined Nothing to Do. It occurred to me while reading about the problems of young people running amok and out of control in the county press of the 11th of the 1st. There is an almost ready-made solution right on our doorstep and in front of our eyes. The cause is, of course, the fact that there is nowhere for them to go and nothing to do. The answer might be to open part of some schools in the evenings. Nice big empty sports halls, canteens on site, or what about church halls, nearly always empty? What a role they could play. I can see five-a-side football matches being played in the evening, or table tennis, or maybe they could just listen to the music they like. Volunteers may be found to run these little youth clubs, maybe not. But it's time the people who could make this happen actually stopped talking and did something. Remember, these kids are the lifeblood of our nation.
And this is a letter from Roger and Jenny Crates of Freshwater, and the heading is Children Have No Guidance. The front page of the county press answered the question posed by Jim Gibbons in the Weekender of the same issue. Should children decide on God? Around 60 youngsters running wild in the centre of Newport, causing a great deal of upset and chaos. Perhaps Mr. Gibbons should ask himself whether in the bad old days, when schools had Christian assemblies and quite a few children went to Sunday school, with Christian teaching about respecting other people and other people's properties, did he ever see a similar report on the front page? There is enormous pressure nowadays on Christianity. More Christians are being persecuted all around the world than members of any other faith groups. In this country, a complete lack of knowledge of what Christianity actually teaches about God's love for us and our responsibility to love other people has led to hostility to Christian beliefs and teaching. Christianity has been taken out of most schools and very often out of public life. So what is happening? Children are growing up with no guidance or teaching on right and wrong. Horrible television dramas of violence and extreme sexual content. The internet and social media all add to the confusion for youngsters. Look how bad it has become in London and other cities with knife crime, drug culture, etc. Once upon a time, children grew up enjoying their childhood and teenage years without constant pressure to conform to the lowest standards. Nowadays, hope is being taken away from them. This is heartbreaking.
And now a letter from Mike East of Brading, headlined No Youth Funding. You report youth vandalism in Newport in the county press of the 11th of the 1st. Could this be anything to do with the Conservatives' decision to cancel all funding of youth services on the island? Is their decision resulting in increased police and court costs even faintly cost effective, or in any way giving support to our young families?
And this heading is Wrong Time for Referendum. It's from Mr. V. Uri of East Cowes. Apologies, another letter about the EU referendum. The actual referendum should have been held at the end of the 3-year debate. The actual facts about things that mean everything to people should have been correct and not the wild facts quoted at the time. If we leave, I believe there's a £39 million bill to pay. What a lot that could buy for the country. People, I'm sure, want to know if we're going to be better or worse off. A referendum now would have given young people a chance to vote. After all, it's their future at stake. To a lot of elderly people, it doesn't matter so much, yay or nay. It's split this country right down the middle. Cameron, he's well out of it. His idea split the Tories. Another referendum to confirm or not?
And now a letter from Alan Blackburn of Cowes, headlined Poor Football Club Plans. Regarding South Coast Leisure's plans to demolish a perfectly good sports ground, Newport Football Club, in the county press of the 21st of the 12th. Why, with all their business skills and Mr. Wakes' negotiating skills, could they not, with help from the FA and Sport England, upgrade the present ground and make it an asset for the community for the future, as opposed to having another retail park. If rumours are right, it will include another fast food outlet of the sort the current Conservative government is trying to stop the spread of. It will also mean all-night lighting, so more light pollution. As for the carrot of possibly up to 200 jobs and free parking, the car park would fill up with staff and people working in town. Perhaps a better use of the site, if the club must go, would be for housing. I'm surprised there are not more comments on the planning website. Or is this the normal apathy from islanders?
And this heading is Plan Stinks from Hilary Webster of Northwood. Now that conditional approval has been given for a housing estate to be built on farm and pasture land directly behind the south side of Oxford Street, Northwood, it is obviously just a matter of time before this becomes a fait accompli. Does the Isle of Wight Planning Committee intend to join every village to the nearest available town? Despite many objections from all over the island about similar proposals, they plough ahead regardless. Northwood and Gurnard are already practically joined, becoming a suburb of Cowes. Now it seems our unfit-for-purpose planning committee is starting the process of joining us to Newport. What next, one might wonder? One huge town encompassing Cowes and Newport? This is not NIMBYism. These will not be affordable houses for local people, but another example of mainland firm making a huge amount of money again. No one objects to a few new houses in each village, but our inept council seem intent on destroying village life and allowing green spaces to be a thing of the past. I think it is high time for a judicial review to look at the decisions being made regarding planning applications.
And now a letter from Bob James of Ryde, headlined, I started Judo Club. About the closure of Ryde Judo Club after 60 years reported in the county press of the 7th of the 12th. I was instrumental in setting up the club, along with Dave Watkins and Ray Sexton, who at the time was a youth club leader. I ran the club for years but was omitted from the story. I wish they would get their facts right.
And we're now on Looking Back, and the first Looking Back item is from 100 years ago, January the 18th, 1919. The Mayor and Mayoress of Newport attended a ceremony at Barton Boys' School for former pupils who had returned from captivity in Turkey and Germany. Headmaster Owsley said it was unique. A small school should have at least 6 old boys coming back. He said the school had laid the foundation for character, fortitude and heroism. A gloom was cast over Cowes when a respected resident was involved in an accident in Stornoway. Lieutenant Cotter was reported missing after HMS Islair was wrecked in a storm. He had only been on the ship for 4 days after his Christmas leave.
And 75 years ago, on January the 15th, 1944, a china and glassware dealer was summoned to court for selling 6 egg cups for too high a cost. Ralph Mew of Ryde sold the egg cups for 15 shillings, when the maximum price, given they were second hand, was 6 shillings. The mayor fined Mew £5 and said the shop must refund the buyer the excess. And 2 brothers had happy reunions at Christmas despite fighting in the war. Driver Fred Pardey and Lance Corporal Harold Pardey, who had not seen each other for 2 years, met somewhere in Italy. Private Gordon Andrews and Gunner Percy Andrews, separated for 3 years, crossed paths in Cairo.
50 years ago, on January the 18th, 1969, the population of the island exceeded 100,000 for the first time. The estimated figure, as of the end of 1968, was 100,860. A County Hall spokesperson said this was an increase of nearly 3,000 on the previous year. And a farmhouse cottage at St Helens suffered severe damage in a fire. The downstairs of the home was destroyed after the blaze damaged the living room and kitchen. A local farm worker raised the alarm, promptly enough that no one was hurt, and crews from Bembridge assisted in extinguishing the fire.
And 25 years ago, on January the 1st, 1994, the Black Gang landslip was still on the move. Experts monitoring the area reported movement of the back scar after thousands of tons of soil crashed into the sea. Residents of the holiday park, who initially refused to leave, staggered across rugged cliffs carrying furniture when they gave in to pressure to flee the site. And an island author who experienced uncomfortably close quarters with an early earthquake which claimed 42 lives and made thousands homeless was safely back on the Isle of Wight. Cassandra Eason of Freshwater said she woke up in her hotel and found everything moving: walls, ceiling, furniture. She described the experience as unreal and said she was totally thrown by it.
10 years ago, January the 16th, 2009, Ireland children were the most likely in the country to suffer bullying, according to Ofsted. Figures released by the school inspectors showed 54% of Ireland children had been bullied, 10% higher than the national average. Children and Young People Cabinet member, Councillor Alan Wells, said the council was disappointed by the Ofsted findings. And a young Ireland swimmer received a personal reply from her Olympic hero, Rebecca Adlington, even though the letter she sent had no address. Sidonie McLaren, 9, sent the letter to Rebecca Adlington, Olympic hero, Mansfield, and it somehow got to her. Sidonie said she was speechless when she got the response.
And now the Wight Memories column. 25 years on, Black Gang's huge landslip. And this story is by James Wolven. 25 years ago, on the night of January the 12th, 1994, a massive landslide devastated an area of Black Gang, destroying 2 houses and leading to the evacuation of many residents. Emergency services were powerless as the huge landslide turned the old Black Gang road into an earthquake zone. What was left of the road rippled and cracked, and residents were offered emergency accommodation at Chale Village Hall as a massive section of the cliff fell away. Police received calls at around 9 p.m. that day, saying the cliff was on the move, and they called out the Solent Coast Guard. Rescue teams from Totland and Ventnor were dispatched, and the Coast Guard helicopter was alerted. Despite the risk of further landslides, some of the residents who rented caravans and chalets in the danger zone refused to move. Worst hit was a cottage owned by the Dabell family, who run the nearby Black Gang Chine. Alex Dabell was inside having dinner when the ground started to move. The floorboards just seemed to rise up like a pyramid, and the wallpaper started ripping as cracks appeared in the wall. The land at Black Gang continued to move for more than a week, and news of the landslide occupied the front page of 2 editions of the County Press. County Press Deputy Editor Rachel Rosewell remembers reporting the event when she was a reporter at the paper. She went down to Black Gang immediately after the landslide and spoke to people affected. She also went up in a light aircraft to view the devastation from above. Rachel said, "As a senior reporter, I received a call first thing in the morning from the news editor telling me to meet up with Chris Thwaites, the County Press chief photographer, to go off to the landslip, which had only recently taken place. There were reports of people living in huts alongside the landslip area who were refusing to move, despite police warnings for them to get out. A further landslip was predicted and their lives were in danger. The whole area was like an earthquake zone. Huge sections of the road at Black Gang had fallen away and there were massive cracks. It was unbelievable. When we arrived, the world's press also descended. I particularly remember a reporter from Sky News who was wearing a light linen suit and a pair of suede brogues."
Chris and I were togged up in wet weather gear and boots, and this chap had to try to clamber over the muddy landslip with us. He got filthy and his clothes were ruined. At that point, I don't think the police had closed off access as we managed to get down there, and as I happened to know a few of the people living in the huts, we got an interview. Chris then had the brilliant idea of asking his friend Jim Burney of Burney Air at Bembridge to take us up in his light aircraft so he could get some great shots of the landslip from the air. The editor thought it would be good if I went too, so I could write a pen portrait of the devastation. The only trouble was I hate flying. To make matters worse, Chris, who was a terrible daredevil, had asked Jim to remove the doors from our plane so he could hang out and take pictures. It was a 4-seater, and I was in the back, holding on for dear life. As we swooped over the landslip, we went from the land to the sea, and as anyone who knows anything about airflow knows, there was a fair amount of turbulence. Just what I hated. How Chris didn't fall out of the plane I do not know, but he kept throwing rolls of film back for me to catch. I had both hands braced on the sides of the aircraft and the film kept hitting me on the head. When we eventually got down, I had to follow Chris into the darkroom and get him to develop the film as quickly as possible, and I wrote my description from his pictures, as I'd had my eyes squeezed tightly shut for the whole of the flight.
And now the My View column, first of which is written by Jonathan Young and is headlined, An Overview of Brexit, and it's bad. If you fly out from Bournemouth to the Eastern Med on a clear day, as I did recently, the island falls away below you from west to east like a page in an atlas. Barely 15 minutes later, having reached cruising altitude, the channel ports on both sides come into view. The tiny dots of ferries picked out by their wakes, getting people and lorries from here to there and back again on their never-ending shuttle. From 36,000 feet, it looks like no distance. Most of us don't remember a time when it was any different, and it's tempting to imagine that it never was and never will be. You'd need to be well into your 80s to recall the days when lives were being lost attacking and defending beachheads, shipping was being torpedoed, the Channel Islands were under Nazi occupation, and our own island was staring down the barrel of Hitler's guns. Quite how Britain dodged that bullet is one for the historians, but it's a matter of record that afterwards the countries of Western Europe made determined efforts to bind themselves together and live in peace. The centrepiece of that effort was called the European Economic Community. The belief was, and is, that peaceful trade and open borders generate wealth and can defeat xenophobia and destructive nationalism, and in particular the special brand of hatred sometimes reserved for one's nearest neighbours. The UK came late to the party, but we've now been central players for 40 years. The EU, as it now is, has evolved, not necessarily very cleverly, but the intentions, the motives are just the same, certainly on the part of leaders such as Merkel and Macron, whose countries lost more than we ever did through conflict, and will again if Europe descends once more into tribal violence. And now we appear intent on leaving. One on the basis of absurd and dishonest promises, with the race card repeatedly played, we are, by a narrow majority, and give or take the odd parliamentary spasm, going to turn our backs on Europe, unlearn the lessons of history, and then, I dare say, blame anyone but ourselves for the resulting problems. They are problems so wide-ranging and severe that even Brexit's sober apologists, such as Philip Hammond, have given up pretending it's not going to be bad. It's just a question of how bad. As we drift apart from our foreign partners, and the billions Boris Johnson and company promised for the NHS don't materialise, who do you think will accept responsibility? Boris or whoever's pinched his place on the greasy pole? Not a chance. Much more appealing to heap opprobrium on those we used to call friends and allies, who've had the temerity, with their visas and their import duties, to treat us as though we're not in their club anymore. When we're not. And when fishing quotas and Gibraltar and all the other things now settled through talking flare up, what do? Send a gunboat? Great. I voted Remain. I very much hope that one day, and the sooner the better, I get the chance to do so again, or perhaps to vote Return. If I needed reminding that Europe's too small a place to be squabbling amongst ourselves, then the 15 minutes flying time from the Needles to Calais and on to Cyprus, a very hospitable EU country by the way, as well as a warm one, served as the reminder. But in truth, I didn't need reminding. I'm a student of recent European history.
And the second My View piece is written by Alan Marriott, and the heading is Social Matchmaking May Be the Answer. I make no apology for picking out a Coppers quote as last week's front page headline. Quotes, "They've gone feral," was too good a soundbite not to use as a screaming indictment of a genuine issue in the island's county town. For those who missed it, kids were causing mighty ructions around the bus station and the town streets, kicking in windows, scuffling, and generally making a nuisance of themselves. The issue is a deep one, and as long in the tooth as my time on the planet. There's nothing to do, opine the youth of the Wight, making a bit of petty vandalism. Petty is a better word than the mindless adjective which usually accompanies the vandalism word. What vandalism is mindful? Sound like the only possible alternative. Whatever happened to a game of football, a gig, or hanging round your mate's house listening to the latest LP? All activities of choice when I was their age. Acting Sergeant Martin Edgerton, drafted from the Wild West of Yarmouth to sort out the issue like some sort of kindergarten Wyatt Earp, told our chief reporter Emily Pearce there really was nothing for them to do other than gathering outside McDonald's for a dust-up and fries. As I say, it is not a new problem, and it was nice to see the burghers of Newport this week pledging an 86% council tax rise would be partly used to fund a new town youth club and youth coordinator. I guess a lot of the issue is there is plenty to do if you have an interest, be it drama, dancing or swimming. But for a lot of kids, discovering their passions in life and mapping a pathway to enjoying those hobbies is not as simple as it may sound. Parents are stretched by antisocial working hours, domestic chores and other ties, so are not always able to give the lifts, backing and money kids need to take up a sport or other recreational activity. Many clubs and societies are begging for new blood to sustain them. So could there be a matchmaking service between bored kids and organisations such as football clubs and the like? I know Groucho Marx's oft-repeated quote, "I refuse to join any club that would have me as a member," rings true, but if the teenagers give a bit, go as a group and realise you have to put something in to get something back, and the organisers are not expecting model members from day one, then maybe, just maybe, we could start to see fewer kids hanging round the Golden Arches and more gaining a fulfilling pathway to constructive leisure time. And that's not forgetting the inestimable benefit to all those groups who are on the brink of folding because there is no new blood coming through.
And then a column headlined "Make a Note in Your Diary for the Isle of Wight's 2019 Highlights," and this is written by Laurie Little. Forget Brexit, the ferry problems and the post-Christmas gloom for a moment. 2019 is looking as if it could be a good one for the island. The County Press team has been looking ahead and has come up with 19 things to look forward to in 2019. So get your diaries out, get your tickets booked and get ready for what's in store. Number 1. Although there have been no acts announced for the forthcoming Isle of Wight festival yet, that doesn't mean we can't get excited. Anticipation is in the air, early bird tickets have sold out and rumours of an appearance by the Spice Girls and or the Eagles have already whetted the appetite for the island's biggest annual event, June the 13th to 16th. Number 2. Dick and Dom, TV legends to anyone under the age of about 35, are bringing something new to the Isle of Wight. The Great Wonderfest promises a mix of family entertainment, music, magic and fun. A spokesperson for the event said, "Programmed from the brains of these creators of chaos, expect their big black book of TV chums and favourite acts to be unleashed into fields of wonder. There will be 4 days of entertainment plus camping options from August the 1st to August the 4th. Number 3. Every 2 years, thousands of athletes from islands across the globe come together to compete in the NatWest International Island Games. This year, it's being held in Gibraltar, and a team from the Isle of Wight will be taking part, hopefully swimming, shooting, sprinting and swinging their way to victory. From target and endurance events to team sports such as sailing, basketball and beach volleyball, the Island Games holds competitions in a diverse range of sports and is open to competitors as young as 13. You can follow the action via the county press from July the 6th to July the 12th.
Number 4, Wight Aviation Museum. A new attraction for the Isle of Wight should be set to open soon at the Isle of Wight Airport, where a hangar is being lovingly turned into a collection, showing the extensive and rich history of aviation on the island. The museum will recognise the fusion of marine and aviation skills that led to the building of 600 aircrafts on the island during the First World War, and illustrate the intense war in the air over the island during the Battle of Britain. It will also show the diversity of aerospace skills through showcasing a replica Black Arrow rocket and bringing people up to date with the current work being done by aerospace companies based on the island. Number 5. There is a feast of amateur dramatics in store. Ventnor Theatre Group has secured the rights to perform Jesus Christ Superstar in April-May, while the Island Savoyards are kicking off their shows with My Fair Lady. There's also a panto coming up, with White Strollers putting on Robin Hood in the February half-term. Number 6. It's renowned as one of the toughest marathons you can do. Will you be up for the challenge of the Isle of Wight Marathon this year? The 63rd Isle of Wight Marathon takes place on October the 6th, so there's plenty of time to get prepared. Number 7. Jack Up the Summer is the new name for Jack Up the 80s, the popular retro festival. This year it is being relocated to North Fairley Farm and takes place on August the 10th and 11th. Artistes are to be announced in the coming weeks.
Number 8. The National Poo Museum is coming soon and will be opening at Sandowns Battery Gardens. For all things smelly and lots of innuendo, follow the museum on Facebook, and hopefully there will be news soon on when the museum will be opening its doors. Number 9. Cows Week. Despite the news the iconic Red Arrows can't fly over this year as they will be stateside, there is still plenty to look forward to at Cows Week, not least the actual sailing. Taking place from August the 10th to the 17th, expect the usual social events, celebs and shoreside entertainment as well as the racing. Number 10. The Ventnor Fringe has moved its dates so it no longer clashes with Edinburgh Fringe and Cows Week. The Fringe is 10 years old in 2019, so we look forward to celebrating in its various pop-up venues and bars in every conceivable space at more than 100 different shows. That's from July the 23rd to July the 28th. The behemoth that is the Chale Show has added the extra of being a massive horticultural show too. So it is time to get crafty, plant your seeds and perfect your Victoria sponge recipe. That's on August the 3rd and August the 4th. Number 12. Isle of Wight Pride has firmly established itself as a fixture in the Isle of Wight calendar, and plans are already afoot for a sprinkling of rainbow colour for this celebration of the vibrant LGBTQ community. More details will be coming soon, but the date is July the 20th.
Number 13. Walk the Wight is another must for thousands of us. The walk is great for a personal challenge, a photo opportunity and, most importantly, the chance to support Mountbatten and raise money for the hospice. It has raised a staggering £4 million since its inception. Registration opens this month and the walk is on Sunday, May the 12th. Number 14. Some big names are scheduled to perform at Shanklin Theatre this year, including Jimmy Cricket, Collarbro, Elkie Brooks, Julian Clary, Henning Venn, Al Murray and Jimmy Carr. Don't delay, as some shows are already almost sold out. Number 15. It seems to get bigger and more colourful every year, so don't forget the Mardi Gras, held in Ryde every last Saturday in June. It's the new Carnival Company's flagship event and showcases the very best of children and young people's carnival experience through learning, creating and performance. Saturday, June the 29th. Also look out for Ryde Carnival, the oldest in the country, which is on August the 29th. Number 16. It is quite the spectacle, so make sure you head to Osborne Horse Trials this year. The competition at Osborne is a much shorter and faster paced competition compared to traditional horse trials, including dressage, show jumping and cross country. Excellent viewing is offered in many places, but those on the terraces will enjoy a bird's eye view of all the action. July the 23rd and 24th. Number 17. Get your cameras at the ready, whether you are participating or just gawping from the shoreline. It's Round the Island Race on Saturday, June the 29th. The race regularly attracts more than 1,400 boats and around 15,000 sailors, making it one of the largest yacht races in the world. Number 18. Open Studios. The island is home to lots of talent and many artists work from interesting workshops, some from home. This annual event gives you a chance to see the very places where the magic happens, and you get to chat to the artists too. July the 12th to July the 22nd. Number 19. It dates back to the reign of Queen Victoria and has been a highlight of the island's calendar ever since. The Royal Isle of Wight County Show returns to Northwood on Sunday, June the 30th, and celebrates the best of country life.
Also coming up, we have a Get Closer with an Animal Experience. Close encounters with exotic animals are magical experiences which few people get to enjoy. But with the Isle of Wight Zoo's special animal experiences, these rare opportunities are virtually on your doorstep. With one of the zoo's special packages, you can treat yourself or a loved one to a privileged look at life behind the scenes as you meet the residents, including big cats, lemurs, meerkats and reptiles. There's an experience for everyone, from zookeeper for a day for anyone interested in caring for animals, to a photography workshop that teaches how to capture stunning wildlife shots. There's also a junior keeper experience created especially for young animal lovers, plus the chance to get up close with the Madagascan favourites in the lemur experience. You can also book an exciting private tour, with the chance to see tigers and lions at close quarters in the Big Cat experience. To find out more about animal experiences, visit the Isle of Wight Zoo website.
Arias from the movies. A concert of opera arias from the movies is taking place in February. Project Opera presents Popcorn Opera at St Catherine's Church, Ventnor on Saturday, February the 9th at 7 p.m. and at Ryde Methodist Church on Sunday, February the 10th at 4 p.m. The concerts will be led by internationally acclaimed pianist Angela Pascali, who will be playing themes from Cinema Paradiso and Amelie, accompanying the singers in a programme including O Mio Babino Caro, Costa Diva, La Mamma Morta and bass arias from Wagner's Die Walküre and the Ring Cycle. Project Opera's singers on this occasion will be global award-winning crossover soprano Marika Rauscher, local soprano Annalisa Vaughan, and character bass baritone Ian Wilson-Pope. He appeared in the film Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows. For further information about Project Opera, go to its Facebook page or ticketsource.co.uk/Project Opera website.
And we also have news of a choir's eagerly awaited return. After hosting a free concert that had spectators flooding out of the doors of Quor Abbey, the Camerata Chamber Choir promised their fans they would perform the concert again. The choir will perform works by Palestrina, Mozart and Bach at All Saints Church in Ryde next Saturday, January the 26th. Robin Ford, island poet and former mayor of Newport, said, "Those of the many fans who managed to attend the concert at Quor Abbey were bowled over by the content and sheer quality of what they heard, and will be delighted to know the concert will be given at All Saints. Those of us who attended the Quor Abbey concert will certainly be at the January one, as we know what a treat lies in store. The Camerata Chamber Choir is a small choir of about 16 voices, and their clarity and purity of tone under their director, Jurgita Lestrumaite, is all the better for this. The concert is £10 per adult, children go free, and tickets are available on the door or from www.camerattack-isleofwight.co.uk. Doors for that open at 7 p.m.
And now we return to some news items. Council shuts beach path indefinitely, by Emily Pearce. A popular beach footpath has been closed amid safety fears after someone slipped and fell. And unless the owner comes forward to repair the, in quotes, dangerous slipway, it could remain closed for good. The path to Gurnard Beach offshore path has been blocked by the Isle of Wight Council with a large metal fence. It follows an incident in October when someone, believed to be a holidaymaker, fell whilst using the slipway. A council spokesperson said the authority had neither the money nor the inclination to carry out the repairs. The quote says, "Even though the upkeep and maintenance responsibilities are not the council's, we do have a duty to persons wanting to go on the beach via this route. We are not in a financial position to undertake any repairs and would not do so on structures that do not belong to this authority. However, in order to ensure public safety and to keep costs at a minimum, we installed fencing to stop access. Unless the owner of the slipway comes forward and undertakes the necessary repairs and maintenance to ensure it is safe to use, the council has no intention of removing the fencing. Closure, therefore, is indefinite at this stage." The article continues, "Although the council manages the beach on behalf of the Crown, the spokesperson said the slipway and walkway were privately installed. After October's accident was reported to the council, an inspection was carried out and the structure was deemed unsafe. The unexpected closure has prompted annoyance and anger amongst those who use the path. One person said on Facebook, 'The beach is not private. That fence will not stop me from walking along there.' Another said, 'Perhaps a sign saying, "Take care when using the slipway," would have sufficed. The armed fencing sends a different message. Bloody council can't get anything right.' On Twitter, one reader said, 'This is outrageous. Common sense gone mad. A simple sign saying, "Caution, slip hazard." Surely.' The beach can still be reached from a path through the woods from Worsley Road."
And now news that a ferry is bowing out after 200,000 crossings. Wight Link will bid farewell to its oldest ferry, St Cecilia, next Friday, January the 25th. She will be retiring to the Mediterranean, joining her sisters St Helen and St Catherine at the Italian ferry company Delcomar, which operates services between Sardinia and its offshore islands. St Cecilia was launched at Cochrane Shipbuilders in Selby, East Yorkshire in 1987. It's estimated she has crossed the Solent 200,000 times since then. That is around 1 million miles. St Cecilia's final departure this spring follows Wight Link's £45 million investment in a new hybrid energy flagship, Victoria of Wight, and port improvements at both Portsmouth and Fishbourne. Millions of islanders and visitors have travelled to and from the Isle of Wight over the years on St Cecilia, and she has been a reliable and efficient part of our fleet, said Wight Link Chief Executive Keith Greenfield. "We are delighted she will now be sailing in Mediterranean waters. Although space is limited, some non-landing foot passenger tickets are available for St Cecilia's final crossings. They will be the 10:30 a.m. sailing from Portsmouth and the 11:30 a.m. from Fishbourne. Contact Wight Link's Karen Woods at karenwoods@wightlink.co.uk for further details." When St Cecilia was launched, a special inaugural cruise took place on March the 23rd, 1987. With 300 invited guests then, she entered service at 6 a.m. 4 days later in atrocious weather conditions. St Cecilia was built to carry 142 cars on every sailing. However, as cars have got longer and wider over the years, the current maximum capacity is 95. She can carry more than 700 customers on every sailing. compared to more than 1,000 on Wightlink's current flagship, Victoria of Wight. The ship featured in a 1989 episode of BBC One's children's series Grange Hill. Several scenes were filmed on board and at Wightlink's Portsmouth car ferry terminal. St Cecilia also featured in the 2002 French movie A Loving Father, starring Gérard Depardieu. As part of her role, she was painted in the livery of a fictitious Swedish ferry company. And that's all we have time for this week, so it's goodbye from me, Stephen.
And goodbye from me, Pauline.
Goodbye.
This is the BBC.
This is In Touch, the magazine programme for people like me who are blind or partially sighted. I'm Peter Wight. Thanks for downloading this week's edition. Good evening. Tonight, what makes an icon? And does this lady cut the mustard?
After her 7th lesson, she was able to speak the sentence word by word. I am not dumb now. No.
Helen Keller, believed unteachable because she was deaf and blind, who ended her life one of the most famous people in the world. And the visually impaired drama company who've turned to the circus for their latest production. We'll be meeting some of the cast a little later on. But first, the BBC is searching for 20th century icons in an epic history series for BBC Two. It profiles great people from 7 different fields. Viewers will be asked to vote for their favourites and ultimately to decide who was the greatest figure of the 20th century. No pressure then. And in next Monday's edition, featuring activists, the programme will be examining Helen Keller's claim to the title. The story of how 7-year-old Helen, deaf-blind after an illness at 18 months, was awakened to language by her teacher Annie Sullivan, has passed into legend, mainly thanks to films and shelves of books about them both. But people know much less about what happened next. Helen Keller wrote 14 books, was a passionate advocate not just on disability but on a whole range of political issues from world peace to preventable poverty, and she became a kind of unofficial roving ambassador for the United States. So who was she really, and do her achievements give her iconic status? I've been talking to Kim Nielsen, who's written a biography of her which concentrates on Helen Keller, the adult.
She was a really complex figure who lived for 88 years. And, you know, most of us don't want to be known for our entire lives, something we did as a little kid. But certainly she was first famous after she learned to communicate with fingerspelling via her teacher, Anne Sullivan.
W-A-T-E-R, water. It has a name. W-A-T. Whoa. Whoa. Yes.
A spellbinding moment there from the 1962 version of the film The Miracle Worker, with Anne Bancroft as Annie Sullivan and Paddy Duke playing the 7-year-old Helen.
And then once she hit young adulthood, became a college student, she became very interested in politics and loved to read and write, debate, participate in political conversations, and wrote a lot about that as well.
But that relationship that she had with her teacher, Anne, can you just say a bit about that and how significant it was and how, in a way, it went on right through their lives?
Annie was important to Helen, first of all, as a teacher, and then as a friend as they grew older. They did stay together as colleagues once Helen became an adult, and the two women lived and worked together until Annie's death in the 1930s. they had a system of communication which certainly worked faster than anybody else's did. So there were other people who fingerspelled, certainly with Helen Keller, and Keller communicated with all kinds of people. But she and Annie had been doing it for decades and had a bit of shorthand and were dear friends, so they could do that very, very quickly. And then near the end of Annie Sullivan Macy's life, she herself became fairly impaired, and Keller served as her personal assistant for at least the last decade. Once Helen became an adult, she was the primary breadwinner of the household.
And how was Helen a breadwinner? How did that work?
Yeah, she tried various things throughout her lifetime as a writer, as a public speaker. But once the 1920s hit, she worked for the American Foundation for the Blind and did political lobbying, traveling, speaking, fundraising. And then about the time of World War II, she also traveled on behalf of the U.S. State Department.
In the programme, she's described as having fought for the rights of disabled people. Is that really true as we would understand it today? We've had the Americans with Disabilities Act and similar legislation in the UK.
She did. She did fight for the rights of people with disabilities, although very much in her time context, she tended to focus on blind people. And although she did focus somewhat on deaf people as well, she had very little cross-disability alliances in which she participated. And certainly those were emerging across the globe during her lifetime, but she didn't have a lot to do with those. In the U.S., she tried to bring attention particularly to those she felt deeply disadvantaged, African-American blind people, those who did not have access to education. But, I think there's certainly, we can criticize her politics today, and it was hard for her to think about a cross-disability coalition.
I mean, you say several times in your book that she didn't actually have an awful lot of personal contact with disabled people, including deaf and blind people. She didn't have many as friends. Why not? Her
education was very isolated from many other deaf and blind people outside of her first few years at Perkins School for the Blind. And I think it's because she was segregated in her education. She was one of the very few disabled people who, for example, went to a mainstream educational system for college.
So even with her dual disability and in the early 1900s, she went to a mainstream university.
She did. She went to the female part of Harvard, which was called Radcliffe at that point in time. That was a great strength to her, and it meant that she got a far better education than she could have at a segregated institution, but it also isolated her from other people with disabilities.
She has some beliefs that may surprise people. I mean, for example, she was sympathetic to the idea of eugenics, the idea of improving humanity by screening out perceived severe defects. She accepted the idea that it would be better if some children with very severe disabilities weren't born. Didn't she see this could have been applied to her?
Yeah, isn't that frustrating, Peter? There are times I want to sit her down and have a good conversation with her. But yeah, she did. She supported eugenics in the early part of the 20th century. And, this was a fairly mainstream progressive element at that point in time, but, it's still something I often want to talk to her about. It is something she disavowed later on in her life and was reluctant to talk about and was uncomfortable with. But, yeah, she certainly adopted that at that point in her life.
What about her personal life? I mean, did she have relationships?
Keller had one big romance in her life. And this was in the early teens, 19-teens, and was something that she kept from her family, kept from other friends. It was a young man who was a skilled fingerspeller as well, so could communicate directly with her. The two of them fell in love. They secretly sought a marriage license, and when others heard about this, it did hit the news. People responded very negatively to the idea of a blind woman marrying. I think there's, some eugenic elements there as well. Some assumptions that a blind woman couldn't be a good wife, couldn't be a good mother. People really shut down the relationship very, very quickly. And the two of them had little contact after that. She wrote about this obliquely later on in life, something very sad to her. If we'd asked her in her 80s, I suspect she would have wished she had behaved differently or done something differently.
Icons are being judged in this series on achievement, impact and legacy. Does she cut it on all three, do you think?
I think she does. She had great impact on the education and rights of many people with disabilities around the globe and prompted and energized, I know, much of activism around blind issues, for example, in Japan, in South America, in parts of Asia. The U.S. State Department was really stunned by the positive impact she had and the crowds of people that came out to see her in Japan. And they began to engage her in other travels on behalf of the U.S. and the U.S. State Department.
She had very strong political views, not always in line with American governments, not always in line with the Foundation of the Blind. Did she sometimes feel she was being used because of the power of her personality and her presence?
Yeah, I think she worried about being used by people on all political stripes, and she worked hard to control and understand the agendas of those around her.
You say she worked hard to try and control the way in which she was used. What did she do? How did she do that?
For example, when she went to South Africa in, I think, the early 1950s, the initial plans had been for her to only visit institutions for white people. And she insisted on seeing and visiting institutions for people of different racial communities in South Africa, trying to bring publicity to the educational circumstances of people from all racial backgrounds in South Africa. And so that's one example of where she, in essence, disobeyed the people who were trying to set her agenda and tried to bring media attention to the different experiences of people of different racial backgrounds.
Do you think she'll win?
I don't know. I think she deserves to. In all of her frustrations and complexities, she's an incredibly influential figure.
Kim Nielsen. And you can see Icons featuring Helen Keller on BBC Two next Monday evening at 9 o'clock. Details of how to vote are on our website. And if you want to learn more about Helen Keller's life, the American Foundation of the Blind has a very usable archive. Now, I'm not sure extant theatre would quite yet claim to be iconic, but over the last 20 years, the company, which features and is run by visually impaired actors, has earned a deserved reputation for experimental and daring theatre. And with Flight Paths, their latest production, they seem to have done it again. To quote from the blurb, Flight Paths is a multimedia storytelling circus production which combines aerial, music, narrative and creative audio description. So, to translate that a little, what are people really going to see and hear? I'm joined by two of the cast, Sarah Hubolt, who's a former Paralympic swimmer turned circus and physical performer, specialising in aerials and acrobatics, and Amelia Cavallo, who's a performer from the USA with experience in singing, dancing, aerial circus and burlesque. So, Amelia, physicality seems to be at the heart of both of your CVs. Just give us a bit more of an idea of what people who go will experience.
Well, going to Flight Paths, you're going to get a good smorgasbord of different types of performance. So actually, I would say that the main drive of the show is storytelling, and that we do that in a number of ways. So we do that by speaking. We do that through the music that you hear. We do that very much through how we move our bodies, and in particular what we do on the aerial silks that are used in the show.
Right. Well, I need a bit of specialised knowledge here. Sarah, what are aerial silks exactly?
So aerial silks are two pieces of fabric that hang from the ceiling and all the way down to the floor. And then we climb up them and twist and turn and tumble and sort of dance in the air. So on stage we'll have two sets of aerial silks. So I climb up one set and Amelia climbs up the other set.
And I'm bound to ask, because this programme completely accepts the enormous versatility of blind and partially sighted people, but how dangerous is this?
I think it's actually safer for a blind or partially sighted person because we have more skills with touching the silks and knowing what the object is around us, and more consciousness of the safety that we need to do aerials. So we bring that expertise to it.
Yeah, I'd also say it really helps when you can't see the floor. Like that's a kind of a joke, but it's for me it's also very true because, you know, there's no fear of heights because I can tell myself I'm wherever I need to be to execute what I'm doing, which is very helpful.
I'm still afraid of heights.
Are you?
I know I'm high. I know I'm off the ground. But I think Amelia's right. I think we are at an advantage because we can have a more visceral performance and a more performance based on feeling rather than aesthetic.
For sure, yeah.
I mean, exactly how high are you off stage?
We're probably at that 3 to 4 metre. Depends on the venue.
It depends
really.
on the it depends on the venue. Some venues are going to be 5 to 6. Some are going to be 4 to 5.
Yep.
Let's not completely ignore the story. I mean, this is a number of people's stories, isn't it?
Yes.
Tell me a bit more about that.
This piece was actually originally developed with myself and 2 other performers who will be present on stage but not live on stage, if that makes sense. So you'll hear their recorded voices and also their recorded talents. They're both musicians. Victoria Uwawari, who's an opera singer, and Takashi Kikuchi. Takashi's a viola player. And so when we developed this, it became a story about immigration, really, because none of us, I'm from the United States, Victoria is from Nigeria, Takashi is from Japan. And so it became this story of migration that ended up sitting really wonderfully with this traditional Japanese story of the biwahoshi, which were these blind musicians who often lived in temples and became monks and who would tell these amazing stories to various noble people. So the goze, which were the female equivalent of the biwahoshi, which were the blind women musicians who had their own place and their own status. You know, that's a very rich history in that culture that we're, you know, working very hard to be respectful to.
I tell you what, we've got a little sneak peek into your rehearsal yesterday. No one would claim it was a professional recording, but I think you're probably using your silks here. Hang on.
Tipping sideways, twisting, pulling, threading, weaving.
Twisting, pulling, threading, weaving. Standing in the air.
Holding the tail.
You can hear that there's a lot of action going on. How tough is it physically?
There is exertion when you do the silks because you're holding your whole body up in the air. So I think that's potentially what you've been hearing. It is about grace as well. It's about the form and the way that we engage our muscles, but it's a lot of exertion.
Now, obviously, you want to attract visually impaired people to this as well as everyone else. A lot's been made of the way this will be audio described with something called spatialised tracking. I work in sound. I should know what that is, but I don't. Can either of you explain how that works?
There are numbers of ways that the audio description is going to be layered into the piece. So some of it is going to be done live by Sarah and me. And then in some of the aerial bits, we won't tell you which, you got to come and see it to find out, our voices are going to be layered on top of our performances so you can hear us much like what you just heard describing ourselves in time with our movements. And what's going to happen is there's going to be an intricate and lovely arrangement of speakers that will mean that the sound will follow us as we move in the air. So if we climb up the silks, you will hear our voices go up. If we do a tumble down, you will hear our voices go down. If you hear us spin, you'll hear us spin, all that kind of stuff. So it makes it seem very live in that moment because it's following our physical movements.
Clearly, what you've described, it's not sitting down to watch a conventional drama by any means, is it?
No.
I think it's still an accessible piece. This is my first performance with Extant. I live in Australia, and so I've come over specifically to work with the company. And for me, because we're making the audio description embedded in the piece and making the story as clear as it can be and as interesting as it can be, I think it still keeps its accessibility as well as experimentation.
Amelia Caballo, Sarah Hubolt, thank you both very much indeed, and good luck with it all. Flight Paths will be touring for a month, starting in Harlow on the 5th of February and ending in Wolverhampton on March the 5th. And that's it for today. You can contact the programme for 24 hours after we finish tonight on 0800 044 044 or email in touch at bbc.co.uk. You can click on Contact Us on our website as well. That's it from me, Peter Wight, producer Lee Kumatat and the team. Goodbye.
Here is the scaffolding news. In the Cowes area, the current scaffolds are at 93 High Street, Cowes. There is scaffold up within a hoarding. Pending scaffolds at the Wight Hart Inn, Dover Road, East Cowes, and 92 Park Road, Cowes. Current hoardings at 93 High Street, Cowes. Current skips at 19 Bernard Road, Cowes. And there's a vehicle crossing under construction at New Queensgate School entrance in Whippingham Road, East Cowes, and at 23 Stevenson Road, Cowes.
In the Newport area, there are current scaffolds at Cash Recycle Shop, 140 High Street, Newport, Chantry House, 30 Pyle Street, Newport, Seafood Corner Unit 1, 32 High Street, Newport, 44A St James Street, Newport, Exchange House, St Cross Lane, Newport, Lloyds Bank, St Thomas's Square, Newport. A current cherry picker is at Travel Lodge, Lugley Street, Newport, also in Mill Street. And there are pending scaffolds at the Prince of Wales pub, 36 South Street, Newport, and current skips at 76 Mayfield Drive, Newport.
For Ryde, St Helens and Bembridge, current scaffolds are at 148 to 149 High Street, Ryde, and Gardener's Cottage, Upper Green Road, St Helens. Pending scaffolds at the King Lud, No. 2 Esplanade, Ryde, and 91 to 92 High Street in Ryde. Current skips at 21 to 23 St Michael's Avenue, Ryde, and 2 Spithead Close in Seaview, at Corita, Staney Road, Seaview, and pending skips at 13 Surrey Street, Ryde. Building materials and hoarding at Car Park, Brooks Road, Bembridge, and at 84 High Street, Ryde.
Sandown, Shanklin and Newchurch. Current scaffolds at Premier Inn, 1 to 9 Esplanade, Sandown, the Toymaster, 103 High Street, Sandown, the Sandringham Hotel, Esplanade, Sandown, Wilmar, Dorkin and Vermaper Cottages, Church Street, Newchurch, Brian Cook Furnishers, 77 High Street, Shanklin, the Ocean Hotel Townhouses, High Street, Sandown, the Trouville Hotel, 10 to 16 Esplanade, Sandown, Boots the Chemist, 15 High Street, Sandown, and pending scaffolds at the Co-op Food Store, 63 to 67 High Street, Sandown, current skips at 25 Donington Drive, Shanklin, current hoardings, the Premier Inn, 1 to 9 Esplanade, Sandown, and at the junction of St Boniface Road and Arthur's Hill in Shanklin, and a vehicle crossing under construction at 13 Coronation Gardens, Shanklin, 2 Tamar Close, Sandown.
In the Ventnor area, there are current scaffolds at the corner of Trinity Road with Madeira Road, Ventnor, 1 Boniface Road and into Trinity Road, Ventnor, and current skips at Seascape, St Catherine's Road, Knighton, and in the West Wight area, there are current scaffolds at Holdings, the newsagent and old post office, Key Street, Yarmouth.